What do a hammer, women, and beer all have in common? Stick around and I'll tell you. So a woman walks into a bar. Well, actually, a woman walks into a bar on a first date. That woman was me, and that bar was a brew pub. I was happily working in the hardware industry at the time, and I knew I needed to take good care of my customers. One of the first days on the sales floor, I approached a customer and asked helpfully, "What may I help you find today?" The customer replied, "I'm looking for one of the guys." In this case, he quite literally meant a man. My colleagues told me later that they could say steam coming out of my ears as I politely led the customer to a male staffer. I knew I needed to take care of my customers. I had female customers who would only come to me. I had male customers who would only come to me. And it was here that I first started thinking about gender equity. It was at this store that I also noticed a disturbing pattern. Every holiday season, we would get a shipment of pink toolkits, including pink hammers. These tools were painted pink, of inferior quality, and very undersized to do the job well. You know, it's okay to like pink. It's wrong to market crap to women with that color. Fast forward a few more years, and I was working at a different hardware store in a different town. I was single, having fun getting out, and I quickly found a few places that I really enjoyed patronizing. One of them was a brew pub. Remember, I was that woman walking into the bar? So I was at this brew pub one night with a friend, and I noticed there was a table tent that said something about brewmaster's dinner tickets. Sounded like a wine tasting, only more fun. And for the record, I'm a cross drinker. So I had a date coming up at this brew pub in a couple nights. I thought, what the heck, let's have a point to the date. And I bought a couple tickets. A couple nights later, my date and I arrive at the brew pub ready for a fun evening. We're ushered into the brewery replete with gleaming copper kettles and an eat-off-the-floor clean environment. We're served our first beer in a lovely 6-ounce flute glass. The brewer is telling us a little bit about brewing and beers and things like that. And you know, at this point in my life, I didn't know very much about beer. I thought it was something that most Americans drank when the weather was hot, the beer was cold, and life was good. So we're served this first beautiful beer in a 6-ounce flute glass. My date seemed happy, and I was definitely liking this, until we sat down. Upon sitting down, my date grabbed that second beer that was waiting for us, that second 6-ounce flute, slammed it all in one gulp and said, "Well, this'll never do." He wanted more beer. I looked at him and thought, you know what? You're right, but I wasn't thinking about the beer. It was at that moment that I turned my attention to the topic at hand, and it was as if somebody turned a switch on in my brain. I'd never considered beer before. I didn't know that it could have such flavor and variety. I just didn't know. I didn't have any bad experience. I just hadn't cared for what I'd had up to that point. And remember, the point of the evening was the date, not the event. Suffice to say that that evening, that date was a first and last with that gentleman. The evening was also the spark that began my consideration of beer. That brewmaster's dinner was reminiscent of the dinner parties that I grew up with as a child that I loved, and it was a natural. Fast forward a few years, and I start my business, Women Enjoying Beer. I looked around one day and said to myself, why aren't more women enjoying beer? What is that all about? It was a providential query which has led me on an extraordinary adventure. The name came to me rather quickly, and it's been a head turner ever since. I get stopped at rest stops for people to take pictures of the decals on my car. I get big groups of people that cluster in front of my bright orange tent at festivals. And I get a lot of questions in general on what the heck it's all about. As a marketer and researcher, I find these questions and comments fascinating. You cannot imagine what people have felt free to say to me. My hunch was right. There was and is something to this idea. It was a new angle to tackle an old problem, gender inequity. A national convention accepted my proposal to present on addressing the female beer consumer. So I hightailed it into focus group mode. I started conducting focus groups to gather qualitative data from my talk. The first focus group was an open call. And beyond myself, I wondered who the heck is going to give a damn about women in beer? Turns out, a lot of people. 30 people showed up on a random Tuesday night in central Iowa in January. 28 of whom were women, and 2 were, "This is fascinating, can I stay? I'll be quiet," men. Fact. Females make up more than half of the global population. Fact, women in America make between 75 and 85% of all purchases across categories. And fact, women have always been involved in beer. Presentation day dawned, and I was super stoked. And I was unsure of who would show up. I am happy to report the room was packed, standing room only, and one of the quickest hours of my life flew by that day. As I sped through my talk, I had reworked a dozen times, sharing groundbreaking information. I was thrilled with such a large audience. I thought, oh, all these people, they care about women in beer. I was right, and I was also wrong. Once the conference dust settled, I realized, well, of course, everybody's going to say they support women, full equal rights. What else are they going to say? Anyone can say they believe in equity and equal rights. Anyone can say they think this or that about any one issue. Anybody can say these things. And then they can go back to what they were thinking and doing. What I realized was that the pink hammer was rearing its ugly head. What I knew was that a big voice was needed, mine. I want gender to become extinct, and we have to talk about it to create the extinction of gender inequity. That talk was pivotal. It was absolutely life-changing, and a lot of people started approaching me about what was going on. I believe I get asked a lot of questions about what I'm doing because nobody in modern times, if ever, has chosen to independently study the female consumer and her relationship with beer. Nobody has asked women about beer. So I started the conversation. And I have found that opening that conversation opens up all kinds of doors for other conversations. Providing the forum for women to speak up about beer has been incredibly invigorating. Finally, they say, finally, somebody gives a damn about what I think. They're right. There's lots of people that should. So what happened next? Well, I realized that I needed to use that big voice. I realized that a lot of people needed to realize that there was so much opportunity, and so I ran with it. Raise your hand if you have a female in your life you care about. Go ahead. Okay? You're on to me. Raise your hand if you consider yourself a feminist. I can't see you, so this is on your honor. Raise your hand if you're a sexist. And by the way, being called a feminist is a compliment. I knew from my own research and observation that women did in fact enjoy beer. Heck, I was my own poster child. The crux of the issue isn't women or beer at all. It's not about gender or what kind of plumbing we have. It's about brains and taste buds. It's about talking with a group that nobody has talked to before about a particular topic. It's about education and opportunity. Like one of my beer colleagues says, of course, why wouldn't we have 50% female in our company? It's representative of the population. That's exactly how we must think and act. So why is gender equity so profoundly meaningful and urgent to me? It moves the needle. It changes the world. Love and money comes and goes. Education is here forever. So, what do a hammer, women, and beer all have in common? They can help us transcend sexism. Here are 3 ways you can walk out of this room today, redefine success, and promote gender equity. Number 1, stand up. Stand up. When you see something that's sexist, stand up. Don't sell me a pink hammer. Physically standing up is a manifestation to action. Confidently move forward, promote that. Live it. When you are standing up, it commands respect and often gets the whole room's attention. It can quiet the room and create that listening space we need to promote gender equity. Number 2, step up. Literally and figuratively, step up. Move forward in your life. Rest if you must, yet never concede or stagnate. If you're not moving forward, you're holding things back. And number 3, speak up. Change requires volume. Do not whisper. When you see or read something that's sexist, speak up, call it out. When you see something that's progressive, applaud it loudly and share it forward. If you are a woman, do not let the word girl describe you. You are a woman, it was women's liberation. If you are a man, call out the word girl where woman should be. Protest a sexist image. Kill a sexist joke. Redirect to the positive. We all have our own hammers. We all are familiar with beer in some way, and we all have females we care about. When we assume full respect for everybody, when that's how we think and therefore act, we promote and execute gender equity more swiftly and effectively. If you would like to talk more about this with me, you can join me in my workshop. I'll be working on some project with my rubber-handled steel claw 16-ounce hammer. Cheers and thank you.